and believing this gives them, and this is not the same as prostrations, because that seems to be the same thing. It's like, self-mortification. Let's just really sweat it out and do 100,000 prostrations. But here again, it's not the prostrations themselves. It's the mental state, visualizing that one purifies negativities, and because the mental consciousness is so powerful, we can actually purify our mental consciousness in such a way. So we clean it up because we have that intention, and we work hard for it, in the sense like these prostrations are a way of like working for it too, and opening ourselves to something higher than oneself. So, that's kind of the idea. So Alfonso Dalai Lama, during one of the teachings recently, said, if we don't prostrate, like a prostration, and again I mentioned that this morning, but a prostration is not a prostration if you think about something else. It's not actually a prostration. It's just the outside. It's a bit like on the movie set, the house that's not a house, right? It just looks like a house from the outside. It's like that. So to be an actual house, it needs something internal, and that's what the motivation is. And then if you just do it internally, that's actually a prostration. But here, there are certain practices that seem to be mortification. So like nyungne, for example, right? But this is not like if I just don't eat, I become enlightened. That's not the point of that. I'm sure you know about nyungne, so the importance of that. It's the motivation. It's like going through hardships for the benefit of others. Okay, so it's totally different. So, nyungne, I don't know whether Venerable Рита would be much better to explain the purpose and how they're done. But anyway, if you're interested, she can explain you. But these practices of like fasting for some time, it's also a kind of hardship, but it has a very specific purpose. It's not just not eating, and that's the end of it. Okay, anyway, so there's lots of practices. In India were practices such as standing on one leg in the middle of somewhere where it's really hot, and then that was perceived to be a religious practice. I was going to put in, and I didn't put it in, and then I decided to say it nevertheless because of what you said yesterday, suicide bombers. Suicide bombers. Suicide bombers, yes. People who believe if they blow themselves up and they kill as many infidels as possible, then they be reborn, in heaven. I thought, no, I'm not going to say that because it's in Israel and I don't want the divide to become stronger, right? But then I was reminded of what you said. When you said, with the wrong view, compassion arose. Because, oh my God, if someone is trapped in a wrong view like that, how sad is that? Right? So the suicide bombers, they're totally trapped in these wrong views. And how sad, because they suffer so much more. The suffering they inflict, of course, it's a lifetime of, parents being left behind, children being left behind. But then that's the end. It's one lifetime. For them, it's many, 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 many lifetimes of a lot worse suffering. So, it sounds weird, and it's difficult to say that the perpetrators have compassion with them. But that's why I thought it was so beautiful when she said it, and that's why I thought to mention this, suicide bombers too. These wrong views, totally controlled by those. God, what a shock when they die and there's not how many virgins ever, but something else. Really, it's just a wrong view. That I don't know. I've heard about these virgins that.
And we don't know yet.
Maybe there may be the versions, but that may not be the happiness that they see.
Right, exactly. Maybe they're the guards of hell or whatever. Anyway, never mind. But from a Buddhist perspective, well, Buddhist or not Buddhist, if we inflict suffering onto someone, it comes back. The suffering that we give onto someone, it comes back. Because we're interconnected. It makes total sense. If I inject my right hand with some poison, my left hand, I always do it wrong. If my right hand injects my left hand with poison, since they're interconnected, it'll come back. It's logic, isn't it? It's logical. Because of the interconnectedness, whatever I give out, it comes back to me. Pollution of the globe is a very good example. But karma works in the same way. Whatever unhappiness I give out, it comes back to me. Anyway, there's so much more to be said about karma. But wrong views such as those, religiously wrong views, that are usually very much emotional. It creates so much suffering. But most suffering is created for the perpetrator. Anyway, wrong views. So wrong views is the last one, and again, it includes all sorts of wrong views, such as wrong views not believing in past and future lives and so forth. Never mind. But the ones previously, I thought it was important to mention them, because if we look what governs our life on the smallest scale, so which one of those do we hold? Okay? Do we have a belief in the supremacy of our own wrong views and so forth? Really, if we check, it'd be a surprising fact, possibly, that there's a lot we probably recognize ourselves if we're really honest with ourselves. But a lot of the problems in this world come from those. And again, if I want to change something, I need to start here. So the first step, if I want to change the world, I need to change here. I just need to start here. I need to become aware and then make changes. All right. So, the 20 secondary delusions. How much more time do I have?
3 hours.
Pardon?
3 hours.
No.
1 hour. It's okay.
1 more hour, okay. All right. The secondary delusions, I could just read through them, and then we're actually almost done. So again, I'll read through them, and please don't listen with this kind of intellectual mind, but when was the last time I had one of those? How many of those do control my life? Okay, we just listen to it with this kind of view. So the 20 secondary delusions, they're called secondary because the other 6, they bring forth those secondary ones. Aggression, right? Wow. There's a lot of aggression in this country, I think. Yeah, there is. Aggression is a mental factor that is an increase of the primary delusion of anger and that wishes to physically or verbally harm others. Right? It just wishes. I'm not saying someone is not aggressive if they don't go out and say things. And sometimes I get so angry, it gives me joy to visualize I beat the person up. It's scary, right? And I allow myself every now and then to just go wild. Sometimes there is someone in the nunnery I live in, and this person presses all my buttons. And I wouldn't dare for of course, I'm a nun, oh my God, imagine the repercussions of what people say about me. I would never beat her up. But every now and then, whoa, I just visualize, kick her down the stairway, take the pressure cooker lid and go, wing. That's aggression. Right? Saying doesn't help, but anyway, that is aggression. And I'm sure we do it every now and then, especially when we're tired, okay, when we work too hard. So it's very important, again, to be rested, to be well rested, okay? And then, especially at times when we're exhausted, we come home from work, husband, wife hasn't done this and that, children are all over the place, aggression. And our aggression is often directed towards the people we love the most, right? It's not so much the stranger that sells bananas down the street. No, it's towards the person, we love the most. So aggression. When was the last time we at least imagined? I shared with you when was my last time. So when was your last time? We wish to physically or verbally harm someone. Okay, that's aggression or belligerence. It's just another word. Resentment. Resentment is not anger. But, it's just this tiny thing. It's a mental factor that maintains the continuum of the primary delusion of anger without forgetting it and wants to retaliate. Right? It's like someone said something, maybe a month ago, and every time I meet them, one day I'll get back at them. I'll definitely get back at them, I won't forget. My memory is quite good, I remember. When was the last time we felt that way, wanting to retaliate? Or when we have an argument with someone. Oh, right, he did this today, but wait, next time. I know where it hurts. Right? Again, resentment. Concealment. Concealment is a mental factor that is a type of ignorance which wants to conceal one's faults from others when they're pointed out by someone with the motivation to benefit. Oftentimes, and this is Israel, people are straightforward. It's actually great. Really, honestly, it's not like, you're so nice. This is what I find difficult with the Tibetans sometimes. They never tell you to the face. So you just don't know. You need to learn to read their expressions. And I'm not good at that. I'm not trained in that way. So I find that hard. I like the Tibetan way, the Israeli way. People always say, "Oh, Israelis say like, don't you think it's really rude?" Yeah, it is, but I like that refreshing bit because I trust people just tell me anyway, so I don't need to read everyone all the time. They just tell me, I can relax. In the Tibetan society, you have to read people a lot. Yeah, and if I was born there, it'd be easy, but here, I can just relax, just wait for people to tell me. So that's good. But I mean, then, of course, if it's with the motivation to benefit, then still, if it's something, I'm really terribly proud about, then I conceal it, of course. Okay? So there's concealment. So that's a negative mental factor. So oftentimes people tell you something with a motivation to actually benefit you, but it just, in that moment, we try to conceal it. That's actually a negative one, right? And it stops us from growing. We're unable to grow. How can we change if we don't allow other people to point out our mistakes, if we're in denial about them? Spite. Spite is a mental factor that is a type of anger which, motivated by the secondary delusions of aggression and resentment, wants to speak harshly. Again, right? Before we say something with a harsh voice, well, that's the one that precedes anything. Oh, you suck. Balagan. Is that a word? Yeah, you say that a lot, right? But that's not a bad word. That means mess, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. So, there's other words, I'm sure. You suck in Hebrew or something. Whatever that is. I haven't learned that one yet. Rega. Is it rega or rega? In Tibetan, it's shut up. Shut up. This means shut up. Here it means wait. Shut up. Go to hell. Go to hell. Oh, okay. Interesting. Anyway. So spite is a mental factor, all right. So it's that which motivates us to speak harshly. Jealousy. It's not a major one, but it's still, 21st century, fosters jealousy. Right? Tibetans don't have much jealousy, but it's interesting now because the other extreme is being not ambitious enough. And so the school kids are not ambitious enough. So the Tibetans are just developing a system to become more jealous, more competitive. They have the system now. Who's the person who's number 1, 2, 3. Number 3 goes towards the front first. And everyone claps and they get presents. And then number 2, and then number 1. So it fosters that jealousy. Whereas with the American students I teach in Dharamsala, number 1 and number 2 and number 3, they're secret little notes that we have to give them. No one knows how everyone else has done because they're so jealous, it's become the other extreme. So it's like the competitiveness. It's competitiveness, but also jealousy. If someone else does better than them, they can't bear it, and therefore it's totally secret. Right? It's tiny pieces of paper that only they can read, and their grades are on, and no one shares with the other. It's the same in Israel. It's the same in German. Numbers, yeah, roll numbers. The Tibetans are just trying to foster that competitiveness. Then they're not terribly succeeding. I mean, because it's just that the Tibetans don't have that much. Jealousy is not really part of their culture. There is jealousy, but not to the degree that it's fostered in the West. Okay, or has been fostered, and now people try to deal with it. Miserliness. Okay, so we know what. So wait, jealousy is a mental factor that's a type of anger which, motivated by attachment to material possessions, status, etc., cannot bear and feels resentful towards others' accomplishments. So that's jealousy. It's a kind of resentment, motivated by attachment. Miserliness. Miserliness is a mental factor that is a type of attachment which, motivated by attachment to material possessions, status, etc., holds onto things tightly and does not want to separate from them. And I'm not just talking about material things. Miserliness with time. Not having the time to listen to our friends, not having the time, to listen. Yeah, well, listen and share with them. So these days, time is money. So being miserly with one's own time, that's also a type of miserliness. Being miserly with one's ability to help, not providing that help. Pretension or deceit. Pretension is a mental factor that is a type of ignorance. Again, don't forget, is this a mental factor that I have or not? To be self-reflective while I go through them, please. Pretension or deceit is a mental factor that is a type of ignorance or attachment which, motivated by attachment to material possessions, status, etc., wants to pretend that one possesses qualities one does not possess. Okay, happens all the time.
Yes.
Pretending one is a little better than one is. Sometimes we're not even aware we're pretending. That's the scarier bit. We're totally in denial about ourselves. Dissimulation. Dissimulation is a mental factor that is a type of ignorance or attachment which motivated by attachment. So attachment goes, when I say motivated by attachment, it itself is either an attachment or an ignorance, but a previous moment of attachment induced it. So attachment to material possessions, etc., does not want others to know one's shortcomings, to hide our negativities, to not tell anyone about it, out of attachment. Haughtiness. So haughtiness is not arrogance as such. It's a little bit less than arrogance, but still this kind of afflictive kind of self-confidence. Haughtiness. Yeah, he just did the movement of the head. That's it. It's a little bit less than arrogance. Arrogance is being really full of yourself. This is like an exaggerated sense of self-confidence. It's like arrogance is just stronger, right? So it's hard to, I don't know, in Hebrew I'm sure you have, yeah, that one. Everyone seems to agree. So. Haughtiness is a mental factor that is a type of attachment which, having taken to mind one's accomplishments and good qualities, generates an afflictive sense of self-confidence. So it's being a little bit better somehow. Not like, okay, I'm totally arrogant, but a little better. Okay. Shamelessness. Okay, so non-shame. It's the same as before. So ריטה called it integrity or non-integrity here in this context. So that's another translation of the word, shamelessness. So it's a mental factor that is a type of ignorance, attachment, anger or attachment, which is devoid of a sense of shame with regard to one's negative actions. Right? I mean, a sense of like just oneself, oh, whatever. I mean, people don't see me, okay, I can just, well, it's gone. But they can take the cookie from the altar. Inconsideration or non-embarrassment. Inconsideration is a mental factor that is a type of ignorance, anger, or attachment, which is devoid of consideration for other sentient beings with regard to one's negative actions. All right, we've done that before. Dullness. Dullness. Okay? It's just being dull, just kind of a laziness, whatever. Don't want to meditate. The movie is much better. Dullness is a mental factor that is a type of ignorance which makes the mind lethargic, so that it's unable to comprehend its object. Is it lethargic or lethargic? Lethargic. So that it's unable to comprehend its object clearly. Just that kind of allowing the mind to become really drowsy and not applying any antidote. Excitement. And here it's a negative type of excitement, an afflictive excitement. It's a mental factor that is a type of attachment which scatters the mind, that is unable to remain focused on an object. Right? Just letting it, all right, let's just scatter around and be distracted. Non-faith. Non-faith is a mental factor that's a type of ignorance which does not believe in, does not have admiration for, and does not aspire to virtuous phenomena. We had that non-faith before, right? Laziness. Laziness is a mental factor that is a type of ignorance which, due to attachment to sleep, etc., dislikes or feels sluggish about engaging in virtue. It's not just attachment to sleep, because there's also a laziness of defeatism. I can't do it. I am helpless. It's a type of laziness. It's like lacking that. It's a strong, afflictive emotion, and it's very hard to really explain where it comes from. It's lots of wrong views we have about ourselves. But low self-esteem is such a huge problem nowadays. But low self-esteem comes from an exaggerated self of an I. Right? Exaggerated sense of I. Because I cannot fail. My best friend fails. Oh, never mind. It doesn't matter. Right? If my best friend fails, it's bearable. But my best friend is not as important as I am. Therefore, I cannot fail. She can. He can. Does that make sense? So we cannot forgive our own failure because somehow we think we have to, and this is what ריטה expressed so beautifully, this idea of having the courage to be useless, to fail, right? To not always be the best and be number one. It's okay if I fail. Having that courage of being a failure in that sense. Okay. Okay? So first you just let go of this, like, I have to succeed always. And this low self-confidence we have, or the low self-esteem, comes from the sense, I need to succeed. And if I don't, I'm bad. We never do that. We're never as harsh with other people than we are with ourselves. Oftentimes, we're more cruel with ourselves than with others. Because it seems really contradictory, but there's a sense that I'm a little bit more important. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. And that's not saying we are bad people. It's just there's a wrong view that governs us to such a degree that our own failure becomes impossible, becomes unbearable. And so we start hating ourselves. Right? And we think, I can't do anything. And it's almost like we get attached to that. We get attached to our own low self-esteem. That's who I am. I'm worthless. And we get it, we almost like, it's like we hold on to that. I remember times, definitely when I was like a teenager. Oh, I'm just going to kill myself one day because I'm so horrible. I almost enjoyed doing that. I'm going to kill myself one day. I'm so useless. It sounds pretty sad, but I was almost like delving in that. Right? That was me. At least I was someone. It sounds so stupid, but there was this weird contradiction in my mind. Right? I can't do it. I'm a failure anyway. I am. Okay? So I can't do it. It's a type of laziness. Whereas understanding, I can do anything. You can do anything. It's just the mind that makes us feel we can't. We can do anything. We have this incredible mind already. Right? As Venerable ריטה said, in its natural state. Actually, the Buddhas are sane and we're insane. Right? It's like the Buddhas who've reached enlightenment, they're the ones who have used their natural state in the most natural way. Okay? And we're the ones who can't use that. And therefore, not being able to do that, we create all these ideas about ourselves. They're only mind-made. And we believe in them. We're so accustomed to believing them. It's so hard to let go. We're so attached to them. But it's just, we can do anything. There's nothing that any of you cannot do. Doesn't mean right away, but we can work towards it and slowly get there. If the causes and conditions come together, there's no way you will not get the result. So it's a kind of laziness. It's described as a kind of laziness. Oh, I can't do it. I can't do this. I can't do that. It's not true. There's not a single person. It's not a single person that has set out to do the Dharma, has really done it, who has not changed. Sometimes drastically. I met people that were real jerks, and a year later they were totally transformed. Because they did all the causes and conditions that brought them together. And even maybe they were kicking and screaming, they didn't want to change, but they did change. Right? I mean, to the good, actually. So it's the mind as such, it's impermanent. If things come together, it changes. Anyway, so, therefore, diligence is counteracted, or the opposite of diligence is, what was it? Laziness. Oh yeah, laziness. So laziness, the kind of laziness that is not just the laziness of sloth and procrastinating all the time, it's also defeatism. Big problem. Not thinking that I cannot do it, or I can do it in my next lifetime. Keep procrastinating. All right, non-conscientiousness. Non-conscientiousness is a mental factor that manifests together with one of the three poisons, anger, attachment, and ignorance, and with laziness, and that leaves the mind in a relaxed state without habituating it to virtue and protecting it from contaminative phenomena. So this is like a relaxed state that is not virtuous. It's kind of like, oh, let's just relax all the time. It's too much relaxation. Again, relaxation is important, but only when it's necessary. After I've rested, I don't need to relax. Then I can go and work again. Forgetfulness. Forgetfulness is a mental factor that is blurred with respect to virtuous objects due to remembering non-virtuous objects. Right? When I forget my objective and I say I wanted to be really kind and compassionate today, and I set out really well, and then the attachment came in, and I allowed the attachment to just go forth. The anger, let's just have the anger its way, let it just go. And then I forget what I set out to do. That's the kind of forgetfulness that's a problem here. Non-alertness or non-introspection. Maybe it's also non-vigilance. Vigilance. Venerable Рита talked about vigilance today, so maybe this could be non-vigilance. I'm not sure how it could be translated. But non-alertness is a mental factor that is a type of afflictive wisdom which is not alert with respect to physical, verbal, and mental actions. Right? Just not being alert. Let's let it go. Let's just think and do whatever we want without actually being alert. Distraction. Distraction is the mental factor that is the type of anger, attachment, or ignorance which is distracted. All right. So these are the 20 secondary delusions. Again, in order to really understand our delusions, it's vital to go through them every now and then and see which is the one I need to work on the most. Where do to overcome all of them right away. Impossible. There's nothing right away. That's impossible. But we could maybe pick one and go, oh, that one that one is the most pronounced one. Let's see, how can I lessen that? How did it arise? What are its antidotes? And then applying them. Okay. And then the last mental factors are the 4 changeable mental factors. Sleep, regret, general investigation, and detailed analysis. So these can be positive, negative, they can be virtuous, non-virtuous, or neutral. That's why they're said to be changeable. So sleep. Sleep is a mental factor that is the result of mental heaviness or mental dullness and functions to dissolve the sense consciousnesses into the subtler mind. It can be positive, because if it's before I fall asleep, I have a positive state of mind, then it actually transforms into something positive. And sleep, what happens at the time of sleep, is very similar to what happens when we die. And if just before I die, I have a positive state of mind, I make that last moment, when the coarser mind absorbs into subtler minds, I make that positive. So this is extremely important from a Buddhist perspective, to keep a virtuous mind, especially when we pass away. And if there's no someone else, and in Israel, I believe that there's great emphasis on taking care of your family members, more than in Germany. And so taking care of the elderly, I'm sure that there's room for improvement. However, there's more emphasis on looking after your parents possibly. And so then make sure that they're comfortable as possible, and so that when they pass away, they have peace of mind, there's a virtuous state of mind, and then their death becomes something virtuous, and their future, whatever the future holds something positive. Yeah, so from a Buddhist perspective, if we die with a virtuous state of mind, we're more likely to have a positive rebirth, and then more opportunities, of course, and more freedoms in the future. So also before we fall asleep, these 8 hours of sleep, we can transform them into something more positive if just before we fall asleep, generate a positive mind. So we can make a negative or positive, either of those. But sleep here means like this state or this mental function of dissolving the coarser minds, and we'll discuss this in a moment, into the subtler ones. That's called this at the time when we don't die, but when we do it for just falling asleep. That can be positive or negative, or neutral. And then there's regret. Regret is a mental factor that feels remorse for physical, verbal, or mental actions done in the past. That can be positive, if I regret having done something positive. It can be negative if I regret having done something positive. Oh, I shouldn't have spent so much time and helped them. That was a mistake. I wasted my time or something. Or, whatever. I shouldn't have been generous with them. That was a waste of money. Or I shouldn't have done whatever I've done. So that's negative kind of regret. Whereas positive, of course, I shouldn't have gotten angry and so forth. General investigation. Investigation is a mental factor that roughly examines the general nature of an object. So I want to rob a bank. I generally investigate the bank because I want to rob it. Okay? Or I want to hurt this other person. How can I hurt them? What is ineffective? What can I say to really hurt them? So a general investigation of that would be a negative general investigation, whereas a more detailed analysis would be, how can I really hurt them? What are the things that really hurt them? Just an example for something negative. Or how can I rob the bank? And then positive ones, of course, how can I benefit myself and others? Investigating it coarsely or more in a detailed fashion. All right. That concludes the explanation of main mind and mental factors. So I know it's been tedious, it's been a lot of mental factors, but we only had little time actually. But again, as I've stressed, and as Rita has been stressing too, we need to continue on with this. We really want to make some change. We're very interested in this path. To study the mind is one of the foundations. And there are lots of good books available. And so, at least maybe if you've learned about this time, there's already some impressions, some residue, some imprints. And every next time you hear about it, it's a little easier. Okay, so you have this reading material which will eventually be translated into Hebrew. But of course, there are some amazing books out. I mean, Geshe Tashitzerin, Geshe Rabdin. What is it called, the book by Geshe Rabdin?
Mind and its functions.
Mind and its functions, yes. So mind and its functions. So if we could put that on the website, like the readings, then people, can take it from there. So now the last category is the category of subtle and coarse minds. Okay. So this is actually so important, but unfortunately there isn't that much time, but I'll try and finish it. So this is saying that right now we use only coarse minds. We use sense consciousnesses and we use coarse conceptual minds. They're very coarse. Delusions, all our delusions, they're very coarse minds. But we have very subtle minds. We have subtler minds, what we call subconscious now. I don't know how to call it, but there's minds that are more subtle, and then there's the very subtle mind. So there's usually division into gross, or coarse minds, subtle, and very subtle. So the coarse minds, the ones I mentioned, the subtle ones are the ones, for example, when we go to sleep. Okay, at the time when we sleep, there's mind, there's awareness at all times. So the sense consciousnesses are all coarse. But the moment subtler minds arise, the sense consciousnesses disappear. They dissolve into the subtler minds. And then the mind can even become subtler. Okay, and the subtlest mind is called the clear light mind. That is the mind that resides in the heart. Well, not in the heart really, in the center of the chest. There's a small vacuole, and it's said to reside there, it's located there. And it's interesting because in so many cultures, when someone points at the eye, they point at the heart. Eye. And so many emotions associated with the heart. So I guess there's a sense that there is something there. And it's kind of become part of our culture also to point in that direction. Unless you're Japanese and you say eye. Watashi. But it's very often it's the heart. Anyway, it's the explanation that's given in Tantra, for example. You can read about this. It's just about the mind being dependent on subtle energy in our body. So every mind goes along with the subtle energy. So the mind actually is dependent on physical objects, except that these physical objects, especially with the subtlest mind, when we die, the subtle energy wind moves out with the mind. So it's like even the body disintegrates, the subtle energy wind and the subtle mind, they continue on. They leave the body. And these subtle energy winds, I think they explain to me, for example, when you come to a place where people practice a lot of meditation, then the place changes. Because the subtle energy of the body has an influence with the outside. For myself, I feel that this place is very special. My mind is very different here than in Tel Aviv. Because the energy is different. Because people's minds, every time we think something, we feel something, the energy is also affected. And the energy goes in and out through the breath. It's actually our breath that the energy is revived. There's an exchange happening. And that's why in certain places, the whole place changes. I took Gengatsula when he was in Germany. Some of you know the story. When he was to Germany, we took him to a concentration camp. Bergen-Belsen. And I'd forgotten, it was such a stressful thing, I'd forgotten to explain to him where we go. I forgot. So we just got there, and Genla was like, "What is this place? This is horrible. Can we please leave? I don't want to be here." And I was like, "Genla, I'm sorry, I totally forgot to tell you. This is a concentration camp." Of course, then he wanted to stay. I mean, he wanted to hear and he wanted to see it. But yeah, it was like we actually didn't just go there. We went all over. We went to museums and castles and so forth, and also to the concentration camp. But that I'd forgotten to tell him about. And he was like, "Oh my God, this place gives me the creeps." So it explains that that, a place such as a concentration camp where so much hatred and so much suffering, it had an influence even on the place. And Dharamsala, I believe Dharamsala is so special because of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and these other great lamas. And so many people come there and they say, oh, I'm so happy and relaxed. Right away, they feel that, right? Yeah? There's something about the place. And sometimes when someone is really angry, you come into that room and you can feel it. It's almost you can feel it. You can pick up on that energy. So that explains that. Every thought we think, it creates an energy and it creates something in the environment around us. How amazing! Isn't that beautiful? We can make our home a really happy place by just thinking positive thoughts. And there's a lot of, there's a documentary called Water Energy that talks about we can actually change the structure of water. We don't change H to O and don't make it into H3O or something. Don't know if that's possible. But anyway, but we change the structure. And that explains why in a lot of religions, the water is blessed. Anyway, there's a whole documentary on that, which I thought was very interesting. So it's like, we are not separate from the external. We may feel that way, but what we think has an effect on the environment, on other people around us. And that's beautiful, because if you want to make a change, actually just having positive thoughts while we're in the traffic jam, right? Maybe we're caught in the traffic jam when you drive back. Have positive thoughts. It can actually have a benefit. It can have an effect, and people may not notice it, but who cares? Make your car really special or whatever. Anyway, so, these things, they seem minor, but we can feel it. We can go to places and feel that darkness. And with Genla, if I had told him, all right, then he would have already conceptualized, oh, this must be a dark place. But since I hadn't told him, and he had felt it on his own, I believe there was really something from the side of the place because of what had happened in the past. Okay, so such is the power of the mind. And so the subtle minds, so the coarser minds, they're also dependent on energy winds, but most important is the subtle minds. And the subtle minds we cannot utilize right now. We cannot utilize them. When we fall asleep, we fall unconscious. Unless you're a lucid dreamer. People who have lucid dreams, well, they can possibly control their dreams and then, do something with their dreams and affect them. And this is very much part of some of the Buddhist practices, especially tantric practices. But only on a very advanced level, because if you don't know what you're doing, you just go mad. Unfortunately. And I met someone, a German man in Dharamsala. He did practices that messed around with the mind and he became crazy. So that's why Tantra is secret. Tantra is usually supposed to be secret, and there's not much information given away because it's like the nuclear weapon or the nuclear power of Buddhism. Very effective, but if mistreated or not done well, can be very dangerous. Okay? Anyway, but Tantra really deals with utilizing the subtler minds. It's not a different philosophy. It's just a technique of utilizing different states of mind. Okay? But nevertheless, the point is that eventually all of us will start utilizing the subtler level of our mind. Right? Eventually, the idea is that everyone will do this. And the subtlest mind, that's the natural mind that Venerable Рита basically talked about. Basically it's that mind. That is our most essential mind. And if we can utilize that, then there won't be any delusions. There won't be any anger. However, first we need to deal with the coarse mind and start controlling it and lessen those delusions, because otherwise we can never dig deeper. Right? So, even if it's tantric practice, it becomes totally useless. So the sutric path, the one that we explained before, that all deals with generating more space in the mind and to make the mind ready for more advanced practices. If someone does the advanced practices before one is ready, either it's dangerous or totally useless. But if you get this point so that there are coarser minds and subtler minds. The coarser minds are active when we're awake. The subtler minds while we're asleep or while we're fainting or during certain states of meditation, tantric meditations. And the subtlest mind, that arises when we die. So at the time of death, what happens when we go to sleep? The coarser minds dissolve into subtler minds. But it never becomes as subtle. It never really goes down to the level of the subtlest mind. It stays at a pretty subtle level, And then when it's time to wake up, the subtler levels, they stop being active and the coarser ones arise again. When we die, it goes deeper. The coarser levels all absorb, even the medium kind of, the middling coarse, subtle levels, they dissolve into the subtlest mind. They all dissolve inside the subtlest mind. And then the little vacuole in which the mind resides, it opens and it leaves that center. It leaves the body, and where the karmic winds, the karmic imprints that are left on that subtle mind, wherever they take us, we go, we're reborn. We enter a fertilized egg or ovum, what do you call it? Ovum. And then the mind becomes coarser again as the body grows. And when the brain is ready, the coarse mind manifests again. And then next life, we're born, have to learn to eat and smell and to eat and walk again. And kind of next circle of life. Okay, so this is really coarse and subtler minds, and it's been explained in here with the different energy winds. I don't want to go into those. There's one last thing I would like to share with you. One last thing that is really important. So, it says here, it's on the last page, the above presentation of the different categories of the mind is given from the point of view of manifest consciousness. So consciousnesses that are manifestly there, actively there. So when a mind is actively there, it's either conceptual or non-conceptual, direct or indirect, wrong or not wrong. Has mental factors that come along with it. Sometimes there's anger, sometimes there's love, and so forth. But there's times when those minds are not manifest. For example, right now, I don't have anger. Surprise, surprise. I don't have anger. So I don't have anger right now. Where's my anger? It lies dormant. Right? It lies in a non-manifest state. It lies dormant. And why can my anger arise again? Because right now I have the potential for anger to arise again, which is called the seed of anger. Seed is a funny word, because if you think of a little tiny brownish thing that's kind of sitting here, that's my anger. But seed has the connotation of a potential. A seed grows into a sprout, for example. So therefore, I have the seed of anger right now, which is just another way of saying the potential for anger to arise again is here with me. Okay? So if I really want to overcome my anger, I also need to get rid of the seed. So I can do a lot of meditation on patience, which allows me, maybe in this lifetime, to totally make my anger non-manifest. That in this lifetime I will not become angry again. That's possible. But with just the meditation on patience, I can do that, which is that's amazing if I could do that. It would give me so much space and would enable me so much more to practice more efficiently. However, the seeds of that anger, only the mind that realizes emptiness directly can totally overcome. Okay, so it's good to understand that we work with our anger by applying temporary meditations, such as the meditation on patience, for example. We need that, because if we have strong anger, forget about realizing emptiness, just dealing with the strongest anger. But understanding we cannot stop there, because the moment we discontinue those meditations, eventually anger will arise again. Therefore, we eventually need to cut the anger, eliminate the anger irreversibly, which means also overcome the potential for anger to arise again. So that is very important, to understand that different states of mind, they don't have to be there, they lie dormant right now. But the potential for them to arise are there. So the same applies for love and compassion. If we have love and compassion for other people, developed through meditation, we don't need to worry if it's not there right now, because the potential for them to arise is there. Okay? We just need to remind ourselves that it comes up again. So in the positive or negative way, minds can lie dormant. But if they lie dormant, the stronger they are, they can still have an influence on us. And this is, again, from a dharmic point of view, very, very important. Very important. If you generate great love and compassion, especially if you generate bodhicitta, as opposed to ego-citta. I like that. I never heard that before. I like that expression, ego-citta, as opposed to bodhicitta. So bodhicitta, The mind that wants to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, that is so concerned for others, such deep concern and love, and that we would do anything, we'd dedicate our entire life to go through all the hardships to become enlightened. What an amazing emotion, right? Isn't it just amazing? I mean, the people who are controlled by love and compassion, by bodhicitta, these are the special people. I mean, people we consider special are those, right? Because they're so amazing in that endeavor. But even though these people, when they don't have bodhicitta, when it's not actively there, when it's not manifest, when it just lies dormant, that bodhicitta still influences all their actions. It's so powerful. And the same is true for very strong anger, of course, right? When that lies dormant, even that can still, even the anger is not active, the person is still kind of grumpy and weird, okay? So such is the mind, such is the power of the mind, the mental consciousness. Here we're talking about mental consciousness. Sense consciousnesses, they're always there the whole time, and only when we fall asleep they lie dormant, and they're not big deal actually, they're not really important. It's the mental consciousness, the really strong positive or really strong negative ones. They can have an incredible effect on us. And this explains why for a bodhisattva, as opposed to like someone who's on the Hinayana path, both have the mind that realizes emptiness directly. Both have that. But one overcomes only the afflictive obstructions, whereas the other one overcomes both the afflictive and the cognitive obstructions. It's like one is the fuel for the cable car all the way to enlightenment, and the other one isn't. Okay? How is that? How does the mind... You see, when you realize emptiness directly, you cannot have bodhicitta at the same time. When you realize emptiness directly, your mind is just absorbed into the perception of reality. You will not have bodhicitta at that time. No other mind can arise. You're so absorbed into just the nature of reality. How come that this mind, when it's actively there, can cut through more, overcome more obstructions than the mind in the person of someone who has not bodhicitta? Right? A Mahayana person. It's because even though the bodhicitta lies dormant, it enhances the mind that realizes emptiness. Right? They enhance each other. They can never arise at the same time. For an ordinary person, when you realize emptiness, there's no room for bodhicitta. When you have bodhicitta, there's no room for the mind realizing emptiness, directly especially. They don't arise at the same time. They cannot arise at the same time. But even though one lies dormant, it can affect the other. The one that's manifest can affect bodhicitta. Like if the mind that realizes emptiness directly is manifest, it enhances bodhicitta. And bodhicitta they enhance each other. That's why they're called two wings. Two wings can never move synchronically. I mean, if you want to fly properly, I don't think there's any bird that does that. No, they do that, right? What do they do, right? Do they go both?
No. Yeah, they do this to accelerate.
Oh, yes, they do.
And then
Oh my God.
it's gliding.
Camels don't.
Who does
Aeroplanes can't.
Who does something? Okay, oh, then the bird doesn't work.
No,
Forget about what I said. They never move synchronically. When one is up, the other is down. What was I thinking? Oh, that's swimming, actually. Oh gosh, oh my God. Forget it. Anyway,
There is difference at this stage of realizing emptiness because of the bodhicitta. At this stage, later on, he gets rid of the cognitive obstructions. But at this stage, there's also a difference.
No, at this stage, in the beginning stage, bodhicitta, you see, the thing, we need to think that first one gets rid of the afflictive obstructions, okay? A bodhisattva gets first rid of the afflictive obstructions because bodhicitta, the strength of bodhicitta is such that it can only overcome the afflictive obstructions, right? And then it's enhanced, further enhanced by the mind that realizes emptiness. Then because it's enhanced, it in turn then enhances the mind that realizes emptiness and strengthen it to such a degree that it can then overcome the cognitive obstructions. Whereas a person who only aims for self-liberation, that strengthening doesn't happen because it doesn't have to. Their mind that realizes emptiness doesn't have to overcome the cognitive obstructions because they become arhats, they become self-liberated even without that. Does that make sense? So, I mean, my example didn't work But if you think of the idea that...
Were right, because they change course. And the minute that they change course, one wing is up and one is down.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you figured it out. Okay, I'll just add, please just add change course. Don't cross it out. Change course. So when we do this maneuver. Anyway, I mean...
At the awakening point, what happened? They got together?
Pardon?
At the awakening point, what
Oh yes, that's a good question. At the awakening point, only a Buddha can have incredible love and compassion for a sentient being, at the same time realize the ultimate nature of that sentient being. You see, that's what we cannot do at this point. What we cannot do is realize emptiness directly and at the same time have great love and compassion.
But isn't it the nature of our quality of the nature of our mind? All of these qualities are inherent within.
They don't contradict, but well, they don't contradict each other in the sense that we can have both, but simultaneously we cannot have. Because when we realize the ultimate nature of phenomena directly, we cannot have the appearance of something other than emptiness. And if you have love and compassion, you must have the appearance of a person, for example, their happiness. But when that appears,
it's non-conceptual.
it's conceptual. Love and compassion are conceptual. They're not direct perceivers, only for a Buddha. They're conceptual minds. They're not directly realizing. It may not feel that way, but if it doesn't feel that way, then I think there's still not a total understanding what conceptual means. Conceptual doesn't mean it's bad. It's great. There are a lot of great conceptual minds. Great bodhicitta. It's conceptual just because you don't experience it as vividly as you would experience the taste of chocolate. But other than that, it's much better than the mind that experiences chocolate. So I'm not putting the conceptual mind down. Not at all. I'm just saying, emotional states, until we're Buddha, they're conceptual. Okay? So this would be something, again, I can only ask you, get a good understanding of what conceptual means, and then try and see, is there a difference between the quality of like the eye consciousness, how vivid the objects appear to the eye consciousness, and how slightly less vivid objects appear to compassion and love.
I'm just curious to know whether this view that you are expressing is
Yeah.
held by all the other traditions, also by...
When you mean tradition, do you mean Sakya, Nyingma, Kagyu, or do you mean the Thai tradition, the Sri Lankan tradition, and so forth?
Well, speaking particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, I'm not sure
Same.
the doctrine view will still the same.
Same. As far as I understand, conceptual mind, I mean, I didn't study the tradition that much. It's part of the IBD study that we study the different tradition for one semester. But as far as what I understood there, bodhicitta, love, these are conceptual minds. So when we direct perceivers, they're direct perceivers of reality. These are minds that directly perceive reality. And when we directly perceive reality, in that moment, we cannot perceive. I'm not talking about tantric practices. I'm not talking about Tantra. This is not part of my job here to talk about Tantra. Tantra is different, but I don't even want to go into it. I did my Tantric part explaining just the energy winds. But from a sutric point of view, not possible.
So you're expressing specific sutra?
Yes. This is all from the sutric point of view. Okay? But Tantra is not really that there's... It's not saying that bodhicitta is non-conceptual. Not even in Tantra. But there's something else, but never mind. I don't want to go into this. Okay, but basically we get this, that even though bodhicitta lies dormant, it can have a great effect. Even though the mind has realized emptiness directly, it can have a great effect. And we know from our own experience, sometimes we get a better understanding of something, okay? And then our love is much stronger the next time. Because even though the love lay dormant, it's affected by that. So it's stronger, it's purer, it's more effortless. And because our love and compassion is more effortless, our understanding grows. Right? So they assist each other. They're like two wings. Unfortunately, the ones... Boy, what was I thinking? It was so clear in my mind. I even put in brackets. I looked up this word synchronically. They don't move synchronically. First I said they don't move simultaneously, but I wanted to say they don't move in the same... But what was I thinking? I had this...
two wings. It doesn't matter the movement.
No, but what I wanted to say was, when one is there, the other one isn't there. right? When bodhicitta is there, the mind that realizes emptiness isn't there, and vice versa. Nevertheless, so they move synchronically. They can affect each other. That was the point. So this is a very important concept. You may not understand right now how important that is, but it's said that bodhicitta is conjoined with the mind that realizes emptiness. They're conjoined. There's a sense of conjoinment because one enhances the other. So whatever we do, whatever practice of love and compassion we do, it's in the nature that this will enhance our wisdom. Don't underestimate any practice towards compassion, love, generosity. You will somehow it will have an influence on your understanding and vice versa. That was the last thing I wanted to share with you. This is one of the most important concepts. Again, how compassion, the method and the wisdom, how they affect each other. Even though they may not arise simultaneously. Okay. Whoa. Sorry. I mean, I really raced through this, but at least we finished it. And you have some taste. I feel like I'm in a supermarket and I give you a piece of cheese and then maybe you buy it or not. So if you got some taste for it, you may continue with this. This cannot be the last time. I mean, no surprise that the Tibetans spent 16, 20 years on this, right? So it takes more time. Anyway, okay.
Is it all right if we end with the Tara practice?
Each year you come back, we continue.
Oh, okay. Yes, we can do that. Yeah.
Is it all right if we have some short
Yeah, of
Tara
course.
practice before the dedication, and then I'll just
Of course,
explain it,
of course,
here?
please, of course do. So I don't have time for questions. Sorry. So whoever gave me those papers, if you're still interested, I can give you my phone number, or Fred and Maya can give you my phone number. We could still do it over the phone, maybe. Email, I'm a very slow typer. I never get to sit to write down more than 2 or 3 sentences, so can't really help you on the email. But via phone, we could do it. And otherwise, there's still the challenge to figure it out yourself. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, and then please.
Thank you.
לפני שאנחנו מסיימים, נסיים בברכתה של ריטה בתרגול קצר של תהרה. אני רק אומר למי שעוד לא שמע, אנחנו קיבלנו הנחיה מדנמלות רינפוצ'ה ומג'אדו רינפוצ'ה לעשות הרבה את התרגול הזה בשביל הצלחה של ידידה דרמה, להסרת מכשולים לפני הביקור של ג'אדו רינפוצ'ה. אז נעשה תרגול קצר של תהרה ואחר כך דדיקיישן. אני ריטה תעזור לנו. כן, ונמסר לי בצדק לומר שמי שלא רוצה להשתתף.